Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to People in Legal. I would like to welcome my latest guest. We have Nnamdi, who's one of the co-founders of Definely. And thank you so much for being here with us today, Nnamdi. Really, really appreciate it. Looking forward to speaking with you. And we're also joined by Catherine, who heads the marketing team on the Definely business as well. So welcome, and yeah, delighted to have you here as a guest today.
Thanks very much, Colin, and thanks for having us.
Brilliant. Maybe if you'd like to kind of start off and tell us a little bit about Definely and what it does, and talk a little bit about what your role is on a day-to-day basis, would be a great way to kick off.
Yeah, sure. So Definely, we are really on a mission to simplify contracts. We are doing this by developing a productivity suite to deal with what we call the pre-execution document cycle. So it deals with everything from creating a document to reviewing it and obviously signing it. And what we've built are a suite of products to help you read, understand, and interact with those documents in a really sort of efficient way. And actually, the background of the Finally started because I was trying to help my co-founder and former colleague Fergus when we were both lawyers because he's visually impaired. And so when we came up with a solution to help him easily navigate through these documents, we quickly realized that actually that solution had much wider applicability to every lawyer. And so that's how the sort of idea of the Finally started. And now we're proud to work with law firms and in-house teams around the world, and to sort of make the lives of thousands of lawyers much easier.
What a fantastic evolution of an idea to help Fergus that has grown into the business and the solution that you have today. Which is wonderful to hear and to see and to know that can happen, right? And what exactly is your co-founder and CEO within Definely? Maybe could you tell us a little bit about what that looks like from a day-to-day perspective, because I'd imagine
Yeah,
it's a mix of everything.
yeah. So I think that naturally my role has evolved over the sort of life of the business so far, and it's still evolving. When I first started, it was very much doing sort of everything and things that I had no idea about, and being thrown into the deep end, and it was very fast learning curve. Having to sort of learn about, I'm a non-technical founder, so I was trying to build a technology company when I didn't sort of have the requisite knowledge or experience. So that was a very steep learning curve, and of course you have to deal with all the other things that come when trying to take an idea into a business. But I've been very fortunate that the company has grown, and now I've had sort of the opportunity to get just an incredible team to help me on this vision. And so that has just made my sort of role naturally sort of change somewhat. And so more so now, what I do is, of course, dealing with people. Business is all about people and making sure you sort of hire the best people, and you're able to retain the best people. But also working with my heads to sort of remap out the strategy of where sort of we're trying to go and how we're trying to grow the business, as well as dealing with sort of investors, and still sort of dealing with customers and attending conferences. And so it's a sort of bit of everything really. I still try and sort of get my teeth sort of stuck into as much as I can.
Never a dull moment, I would imagine, right?
No, absolutely not. I think that's one of the great things about starting a company. Yeah, it's very exciting. So evolution.
And what are some of the some of the key challenges that you've faced in the role to date, and how have you overcome those? And I'm just thinking the perspective of others who are maybe at different stages of their journey, similar to yours or at earlier stages, and maybe some learnings that you might have from those experiences that might help in other companies and other co-founders or founders.
Yeah, I think it can be quite an interesting position you're in when you are a CEO. There's really no hard and fast way to do it. There are no rules. There's no perfect way to do it. I think you have to sort of find what works for you. And for me, I think what has worked best is being able to find the best people, especially people who fill the skill gaps, the many skill gaps that I lack. And so bring them on, to help with that. And, I've been very, very fortunate to find some incredible, an incredible C-suite to, help with those multiple roles. And one of the things that I've learned and I try to apply is, once you have really, really good and capable people, you get out of their way and let them do what it is you've hired them to do. So I try to sort of live by that mantra, and I think that has really helped actually because it's taken a lot of the stress from myself. Because I've been able to bring in really really incredible people to help on the sort of deal with the departments and the various departments of the company. So I think that that's one of them. And then in terms of some of the other things that you have to do, I think being a CEO as the company grows, as you get more people, it really becomes a people first business, right? You have to sort of you're responsible for the culture of the company and trying to make sure that your colleagues are sort of bought into the vision, are incentivized to because ultimately, it's one or two people who come up with this vision, and and you're trying to drive everybody towards that same destination, and you really need people who are really bought in to that vision and really believe in the outcome, and doing that requires a lot of just making sure that the culture works and people are happy and people are incentivized to want to come in every day and do their best work.
I think the first part of the answer was great. Sorry, both parts of the answer was great, but I'm going to drill in a little bit on the first part, which was around hiring really good people. And I think Steve Jobs came up with the quote of surround yourself, with people who are smarter than you and get out of their way, which was brilliant. How did you come to that realization that that was possibly going to be one of the most effective ways to help you to realize the vision that yourself and Fergus had, like for the business in the early days? How did that realization come about? I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'd like to take credit for that. I'm sure it was more of a case of I just knew that I lacked it. I had a lot of skills that I lacked, so I was just like,
That
if I didn't have, if I didn't get the requisite people to fill that gap, then I'll be stuck and I wouldn't go very far. So it dawned on me quite early on that there are so many facets of business, and I think one of the things you have to learn really quickly is that you can't be too proud or egotistical about your skill set. You can't think you can do it all. Sometimes you do it because of necessity, and you don't have the money or the finances to hire others to help. But the moment you do, you're in a position to do so. I think you try to do that as much as you can, and I think it comes with a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness about your limitations. And I think luckily over the years I've been fortunate to know what it is I can't do, which is for me quite important. It's very important to actually know what it is your limitations are, so that you can quickly bring the right talent and experience to filling that gap. And as you rightly said, once you've brought those people in, you try and just let them get on with it. You try and in my opinion, I think the most effective means of management is to not to micromanage. I think people should be in a position where they feel empowered, and that they can they can sort of get on with what it is you've entrusted them to do, and you let the outcomes and you let their product, what they produce, sort of speak for itself.
Yeah, I was actually going to go into that a little bit around, in my view, I think leadership is very much about enabling and empowering the people that are around you. And that can happen obviously in different ways. Enabling can happen through, tools and, solutions, or come through, training and development and coaching and mentoring, etc. But then empowering them, to your point, which is what I think you've done really, really well, but, trusting them to go out and to do the work. There's a really interesting book by he's a submarine commander called David Marquette, called Turn the Ship Around. And he has this theory around the ladder of leadership. And it's about trying to bring individuals up that ladder of leadership. It's really, really interesting. Might be a book of note. I generally will talk about either books or sports on these, so just so you know. So there we've got the book reference in
Okay.
there already, but I'll send you over the link to it afterwards, maybe to pick it up. But the ladder of leadership is really, really, really helpful, trying to bring people up those rungs to
Yeah.
elevate them in their thinking, and ultimately helping to empower them in whatever their roles are, particularly as you grow and scale the business as well. So um, how go back to some of the the many hats that you get to wear. How do you kind of prioritize and manage your time effectively on a day-to-day basis? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I think there's an element of planning, but I think that
Mm,
especially at the early stages of a business where there's still a lot of uncertainty about the future, you are trying to grow when you're scaling, there's just so much happening, so quickly. And sometimes it becomes quite difficult to plan as much as you want to. It becomes quite difficult to try to have everything so regimented. So I think you have to, there is an element of planning, but there's also an element of you have to just, you know, go with how sort of life deals with you. You can plan as much as you want, but if you're in a position where, something hasn't gone, materialize, your forecast hasn't materialized, for example, it doesn't matter how much you plan, there are some pragmatic things you have to do
mm,
to try to adapt. So I think, especially at the early stages, I try to have a quite a pragmatic mindset. But in terms of the more sort of regimented things we do, I speak to my heads every week, for example, and we get together, we talk about every part of the business, how things are going, any sort of future things we need to be aware of and we need to try and plan for. That helps. Obviously, having regular meetings with my board as well. That's a really good way to get external experience and knowledge to assist with that. So for me, it's a mixture of regularly communicating with my team, but also knowing that you can't be so regimented and so structured that you're inflexible, and when you're in business there needs to be a lot of flexibility. There are always meetings that I'm having to take which you can't plan for. People always reaching out, especially investors. There are always issues with the day-to-day sort of goings of the business that again, no 2 days are ever the same. I think that's one of the most exciting and rewarding things about business, is that it's there are no sort of rule books, and there's no sort of day that's like any other. There are always new challenges and new opportunities as well. With technology, with talent, with with the sector, with fundraising, but it all sort of culminates in a really fulfilling role. Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. Love that. I am going to, by the way, ask you a couple of questions about your career journey
Yeah.
as well, but I think we're kind of on a nice thread with regards to the company and the business and the culture piece. And I'm curious, from yourself and from others in the business, how do you like foster innovation in the business? Because obviously you're in the earlier stages, you've got ideas and vision as to where you want the product suite to go and what you're going to want to achieve. Like, how do you make sure that everybody is excited about
Yeah.
continually innovating in the space?
I think first and foremost, your customers are so important in that. I think, as I mentioned earlier on, business is such a people first, thing. It's you can't, in my opinion, you really do business where you don't take into account the people that are involved. And so obviously that's your team, but also that's your customers. And I think one of the things that gets us excited about the innovations we're doing is when we hear from our customers, telling us how much they love what we've already done. So to sort of get to where you're going, you have to make sure that where you've come from is actually also the right, the right path. And so that really helps. We speak regularly to our customers. We have an incredible customer success team, and they regularly have meetings, and we're always getting feedback. Oftentimes we'll get sort of spontaneous feedback from our customers, and it's just incredible to see how much they're getting and how much value they're getting from our solutions. And so speaking to them also helps, speaking to them about the problems, the challenges. And I think you should always be speaking to your customers, no matter how far you've come. I think you always have to have one foot on the, or the ear to sort of the customer, and hearing from them, the end user, and how their experience, because that's ultimately who you're building for. You're not sort of building for yourself, or just your team. You're building for end user to have an incredible experience, to help hopefully make their lives much easier. So certainly the customer helps with that innovation, but also we also have our own internal roadmap, some of which is things we've mapped out ourselves, some of it which is things which we've thought about because of the way the sector has gone, right? So over the last 18 months or so, generative AI has clearly played an important role in the legal industry. So we've had to, and we've always been thinking about AI and generative AI, but we've had to sort of accelerate some of our plans just to make sure we're keeping up to date with the latest innovations, and making sure that we're using that to supercharge our products, which is what we're doing. So I think there is an element of so many different things that go into it, but I think you must always have I think innovation for me is always about just having a pragmatic mindset, and having a curious mindset, and having a mindset where there are no rigid rules. You have to be open-minded and flexible enough to be adaptable.
I love the curiosity piece. I think fostering a culture of curiosity in the business in any business, and any department or team within that business is always really, really fascinating. And obviously, listen, there's so much going on. It's a fast-paced world, but remaining curious and remaining close to your customers, to me, is just really, really important to understand. What's happening in the world, what are the challenges, and how do you
Yeah.
think you can help? And I think you also touched upon, like, when I asked you the question about your role, and you talked about the flexibility in you and your calendar and your role, but you're also talking about that within the business as well, which I think is really, really interesting. And, the fact that you've had to accelerate some of the work that you were going to do anyway, in order to adapt to the fast changing world around generative AI, that's really, really brilliant that you have that flexibility built into the team's mindset around, like, listen, we need to make an adjustment, we need to be able to reprioritize certain items in a roadmap, and that's really, really positive. So I think being able to do that as you grow and scale is going to help you to continue to be successful as you take on new challenges and new markets as well. So delighted to hear that. I think that's really, 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 really good to hear.
No, thank you
Uh,
very much.
yeah, no, absolutely. We'll talk a little bit briefly, I think, about, listen, you know, I'd be curious to get your insights as to where you think the legal tech industry is going to be in the next. There's no point saying 5 to 10 years, because it's just too far out. Even 5 years is probably a bit of a stretch. But just curious about, how do you think about the world that we're moving into, particularly over the last 12 to 18 months, how that's changed things.
Mm.
What are your thoughts and perspectives on that?
Well, I mean, I think about it with a lot of excitement. There's clearly a
Mm.
lot of opportunity, and we're seeing that already. I see, we are seeing some really tangible benefits over the last few months because of the evolving technology. So I think that on the one hand, you're seeing a industry that has historically been very slow moving when it comes to both adopting and using technology. I think you're seeing those that the winds change slightly, and you're seeing more and more law firms and corporate legal teams being a lot more curious, a lot more open to wanting to try out technology. And part of that is probably because of the evolution of AI and the latest sort of the latest innovations with generative AI. I think that that has really helped because of the ease of which the technologies now and the solutions are now being able to be applied by these lawyers. It's not as somewhat complex or complicated as probably it was in previous iterations of the technology. And I think for us that really is exciting. We started this business, or in 2020, but actually the idea came before that. And I remember when we had the idea for this business, there weren't as many there weren't as many startups
Yeah.
as there are now. It seems like every other week you read about a new startup coming into the space, and I think that that's actually very, very exciting for everybody, because it shows that there is clearly a lot of appetite. There's a lot to change, and change is can should in theory be a good thing for everybody, for the end user, for the sector, for the industry, for everybody, even for the investors. I think as you see more and more investors looking into this space, that is exciting for us as a startup, because it shows that there is real appetite and genuine appetite for the legal the legal tech sector, and also that helps grow the market. So for us, we see this as a real great opportunity, because in theory it should mean in the next sort of 18 to 24 months, the market opportunity should be even bigger than it is today, right? And that can only be compelling for you when you're trying to make sure your products and your solutions touch as many hands as possible. We have a very, very ambitious target. We think that our solution could be a global leader, and so for us to see how this sector is now being embraced, and the amount of attention, and law firms embracing the technology, and investors embracing the sector, and it's just really, really exciting. And again, as I said earlier on, it's really important that we continue to stay curious and open-minded about the potential and the opportunities.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a really, really exciting time to be around. I speak to a good few, legal tech startups and founders at various different stages, and I think there's a palpable sense of excitement in the industry around what I think is kind of a change is happening, to your point, around technology adoption within law firms seems to have accelerated. I think we saw an acceleration, around the pandemic, because cloud adoption kind of happened very, very quickly, because it had to. So that was one phase, and then with generative AI, we're seeing another phase, because it is so easy to deploy and within businesses, and which means that usage can happen
Yeah.
much more easily within law firms, which traditionally we've seen that new technology can be deployed but not necessarily used. And that was a big barrier for entry for many law firms. So I think the ease of use is a big
Yeah.
plus as to why we're seeing adoption happening within law firms of all sizes. It's not just small to medium or large. It's across the board, which is really, really exciting. And ultimately, I think that has a knock-on effect to your point, the end users, the people who are using the legal services of the various different law firms, be that individuals looking to buy a house, or a business that needs a commercial lawyer to help them with transactions across their fiscal year. I think ultimately, those end users of legal services will also benefit, and we'll probably see a benefit from an access to justice perspective as well, right? Because hopefully it will allow for more legal services to be accessible to individuals who possibly wouldn't have been able to before. So really, really exciting to see. I'll ask the same question in about 2 years' time, and see how far we've got.
Yeah, no, look forward to that.
I'm going to take a step back, because I'm really curious about your evolution and your journey from a career perspective. Maybe if you can tell me a little bit about your career journey, and how you got to be, the CEO and co-founder of a really, really exciting legal tech company.
Sure. So I'm from Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria and moved over to the UK when I was a kid. And growing up, when you're from a Nigerian household, you're either going to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, or you're lost. and certainly I didn't want to sort of be the latter, right? So I realized quite earlier on that maths was not my strong side, so that sort of took me out of sort of anything to do with engineering or anything to do with sort of sciences, and I didn't really like blood much. So, and actually, my older brother became a doctor, and he's a neurosurgeon. So I sort of left that to him. So I thought, hey, I've always had a curiosity with sort of the arts, and I was always very good at sort of arts-based subjects. So law was sort of the natural tendency for me. And so I studied law at university, and did both my undergraduate and masters, following which I thought, having got that theoretical knowledge, let me put it to application. And so I pursued a training contract, and I was successful enough. I was lucky enough to get one at Freshfields, where I trained and practiced. So altogether, I was at Freshfields for just shy of 5 years, where I was a finance lawyer, and that's obviously where I met Fergus. And really, I enjoyed being a lawyer. I think one of the things you get to witness when you're working at a firm like Freshfields, which is a big international law firm, is that you get to work with really, really intelligent people, and you get to work on very, very interesting and challenging and intellectually stimulating, as cliche as it sounds, work. Oftentimes I would work on transactions that would be either I would see on the news, or I would read about it on the newspaper. That is, when you're a young, when you're sort of young in your career, that is super, super exciting. And so, whilst I enjoyed that element of it, I've always been naturally quite curious. I've always known that I wanted to, do something else. I wanted more from my life. I always knew I was going to start a business. I just didn't know what it would be. So I've always had that, I guess, thirst and hunger to want to go and do my own thing. But certainly the 5 years I was a lawyer, I genuinely enjoyed it, and I got to interact and meet some really incredible people. And of course, I would never have had the opportunity to start a company like Definely, had I not been a lawyer and gone through that journey.
That's means you always knew you were going to have some kind of a business, but never knew what it was. So
Definitely, yeah,
just
no, absolutely.
and the opportunity just came about through working with Fergus. That's
Yeah,
amazing. That's so exciting. Uh, that's really, really good.
thank you.
It's funny how some people have that in, thirst or an inkling of something inside that gets them excited, or a fire in their belly, for want of a better term, that kind of says, someday I want to go out and do something on my own, which is
Yeah.
really, it's good to see it come to fruition, because it's not easy, right? It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, no, and I actually remember my first supervisor. She always used to say to me, I think you're gonna go and do your own thing. I'm not, I'm not sure if you have the patience to for a career like this. You seem a lot more sort of what's the word? I don't know, a lot more hungry for something else. And so yeah, maybe it was something that you could tell if you knew me, when I was a trainee, when I was a solicitor, when I was an associate, that I was always curious about business, and I always was thinking about it, and how to do it, and if you knew me then, you probably have come to the same conclusion that, hey, this guy seems as though he's going to go and do his own thing.
That's brilliant. Is there anything in particular from your career journey that, a particular challenge or circumstance that has had a significant impact on your leadership style, or you as an individual, as a leader, or as an entrepreneur or CEO?
Um, I don't know if it's necessarily from my career, but just generally, from my, I guess, my experience, my upbringing, my life. I've always thought that leadership is about well, it's about a few things, but for me, it's about making sure that you're entrusting people, and you're not necessarily being treating people like you're above them, or they're beneath you. I don't think that that's what leadership is. Leadership is about empowerment. It's about allowing people and letting people know that they have your confidence to really be their best self and be the best version of their self and bring all of that, excellent sort of traits and attributes that you've seen in them to help you, because ultimately they're helping you. It's not
Mm.
really the other way around. It's them helping you to try and achieve something, and so you want them to trust you as much as you trust them. So for me, it's about respecting people, also bringing people from different walks of life, you know
Mm.
um you know starting a business like Definely with Fergus, who's visually impaired. I never knew we would, who would have thought that you could have a blind lawyer, be a co-founder to a an industry, to a startup in an industry where it's all about reading. And literally, if you think about it, what are the chances, right? But because we were open to having diversity of opinion, diversity of thought into our business, that has really, really helped us, because as is often the case, when you have a solution that caters for people on the edges, like Fergus, you capture everybody else really
Mhm.
easily, because it's such a higher threshold to try and meet. So for us, it's all about making sure we're respecting, that to be successful or to have a successful business, because business is a culmination of people trying to achieve the same thing, and so you need a diversity of thought. You need diverse people within your organization. So for me, it's really just been a matter of, I don't know if it's been anything specific, but it's been a matter of really just, my background and, the way I was raised, but also probably, as you probably pointed out, probably some of the things I learned from working as a lawyer as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we everyone picks up, yeah, lessons along the way. You might not notice it, but there's
Yeah.
probably lessons along the way. I think that diversity of experience and thought is really, really essential and making people feel comfortable in that
Yeah.
environment and that culture. Particularly, going back to the fact that you're going to grow and scale when you bring people into those environments, it helps to elevates people's thinking, right? And the rising tide lifts all boats. And
Yeah.
as you bring somebody in, you're looking to try and get them to be a value add to the culture as opposed to a value fit, right? And that culture will grow and evolve as the business does, and you move into new markets as well. So it's fantastic. I had a boss years ago, Jared, who, I'm not good with numbers. I'd be very similar to yourself, but I'm pretty comfortable around data, and I understand data pretty well, within spreadsheets and all that. And he came up to me one day, and this is when I was in my early days of my sales leadership career at Oracle, and he said, "Will you get your head out of that effing spreadsheet and go talk to your people?" And it was a really important, milestone in my evolution of becoming a leader as opposed to a manager, and understanding that behind every piece of data and every KPI is a person and an individual who's, going through something in their lives and has different career
Yeah.
aspirations and goals, and staying close to people during those journeys was really, really important, and understanding them as individuals as opposed to, yeah, a number on the spreadsheet. Still comfortable with data, still like data, but yeah, really important to stay close to the
Yeah,
people, right?
and absolutely, and I think it's similar, right? I mean, if you think about the finally, as a corporate structure, as a company,
Mm.
we have KPIs, we have quarterly targets, we have annual
Yep.
targets that we need to meet. But at the same time, we've got to also appreciate that it's people who are trying and working really, really hard to help us meet these targets. And you have to be flexible within the people, if that makes sense. And I think
Yep.
being flexible actually with your people helps you meet rigid targets. I don't know if
Yeah.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
because yes, the targets are fixed and you have your targets and you want to make sure you hit your targets and your milestones, but you can't have that same mentality when you're dealing with people, because we all have feelings, we have emotions. And actually, I feel as though when you allow people to feel really comfortable, that's when they do their best work. When they're overly stressed or feel as though, they don't want to come into work every day because, they don't like the culture, they don't sort of, like or they don't believe in what you're doing, so all of these
Mm.
things play a key role. And I think, you only get that when you spend time and prioritize the people within the organization, because those are the people, that's the biggest ingredient, can I say, to achieving that final product.
I couldn't agree more. And it goes back to the whole fostering the culture of curiosity and empowering individuals. And people are driven by different things at different stages in their careers, and trying to mesh that in with the overall company objectives, whether they're quarterly, annually, or whatever that looks like. And I do think you get to bring people along the journey an awful lot more when you work with people as individuals, but then also they contribute as teams, and then those teams contribute to departments, and so on. A couple of last questions for you, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the stress and life and everything, and how do you manage, or how do you achieve work-life balance? And I know that means something a bit different in your scenario, by the way, but I think it's still, how do you go about making sure that you can switch off at some point in time and have a life outside of driving the business and growing the
Yeah.
business?
I mean, admittedly, I'm not probably the best at this, because I've never
Okay.
really seen, I've never really seen what I do as
Mm,
work. From the outset, it's always been just a reflection of my life, right? Everything, I bet everything on this,
yeah.
my career, everything, so it's always just been an extension of my life. So I've probably not been as good, certainly in the early days, of just taking time off, or trying to be conscious about sort of work-life balance. And that could just be a a consequence or side effect of when you're trying to actually bring an idea, something in your head, and you're trying to bring it into the real world. There's a lot that goes into it, and by the time you know it, you've spent so much time and so much energy, that you don't realize that you're not prioritizing yourself. I
Mm,
think it helps, and it gets better as the company grows, as you get more people to help you, and you're able to somewhat spread some of that workload and some of that efforts. And that's why I mentioned again, it's really important to bring people that you trust and are really good, because that gives you the comfort to actually, when delegate or give people things to do and give them responsibilities, it can help put you at ease. Because if you're not if you're not comfortable, or you don't trust the people that you bring to help you on this journey, it doesn't matter if you're delegating to them, you're still going to have the stress, because you want to be work
yeah.
checking what they're doing every day. You want to, you're sort of nervous, and about whether or not they're going to sort of actually do it properly. When they do it properly, you spend a lot of time checking it. So that just doesn't. It probably heightens the stress, actually, because it'll probably be easier for you to just do it yourself. So I think, for me, as the business has grown, I found that actually it has gotten better. It can still probably improve, but it's gotten better, because I've been able to, as I said, have an incredible team around me. And when I delegate to my heads, for example, I completely trust them to deliver, and I trust that if there are any issues, they will let me know as they do, and we can
Yeah.
speak and work to a solution. And actually, more and more, I now try and actually take time off. The reason I said it, probably I'm not the best at it, is because I never sort of put in we use our sort of persona, which is like our people
Yeah.
management, where I've never put in annual leave, I don't think, since I started this business. But I do try and actually try and tell the team, hey, I'm going to be away for for the next week. I'll be available if you need me, but I'm not going to be as responsive. So I do try and consciously do that more. But
Yeah.
I think we can all improve. In such a busy, fast-paced world, I think sometimes we always think that that's the most important thing in life, and it's not. We've all got families, we've all got friends, we've all got hobbies. I think we can all be better at prioritizing those sort of things. And I try to actually make sure that, although I'm not the best at it, I try to make sure that I allow members of my company to have, when people, life is so spontaneous. You can never plan life, right? There's
Yeah.
always things that happen. And when people in my company come to me and say, hey, this has happened, I'm always flexible, because I think, again, with that people first mindset, if you help people today, firstly, not that only does it foster a sense of loyalty that you probably would never have gotten if they didn't sort of know that that's what you're, that's how how you would treat them. But secondly, it just allows them to like show up even more for you because you helping them in their personal lives, where maybe other companies wouldn't. It just it changes their mindset and it makes them sort of buy in more to wanting to help you. As I said, it's them actually helping you trying to achieve a vision. So you've also got to have that sort of give and take where you're helping them in the sort of day-to-day uncertainties of life that can pop up in anyone's life.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad to hear that you take some time off, by the way. I think that's
Like,
good. uh, I think it's important also because, it helps you to remove yourself from the day to day sometimes and kind of, process information in a different way. You may not be sitting down and sitting in meetings, but you still have information that's there that's been processed, and you're taking a step away from the day to day business, and you maybe are going on holidays or just spending time with family and friends, to your point. But your brain is still working, and you're still, taking information and processing and putting it forward then in maybe possibly in a different perspective, right? By taking that step back or step away for some time off. So if you did have spare time, what do you like to do? And do you like to cook? Do you do cycling?
yeah.
What do you like to do?
I try to stay active. The older I get, I consciously making sure I keep healthy. So I try to, I like to go to the gym, and just work out. I like to travel, but it's really interesting when I first started the business, there was a lot of travel, there was quite a lot of travel involved, and I got super excited. And then you realize that actually work traveling is very different to traveling for leisure because
Yeah,
it's work traveling. But yeah, I like to travel for leisure, so I should definitely qualify there. But I also like traveling for business, but it's not quite the same as where it's like something you've planned out for your own sort of personal sort of amusement and leisure, right? And obviously spend time with family. I've got young nieces and a young nephew, and spending time with them and my siblings and my parents is also
amazing.
very important. Yeah.
Listen, I couldn't agree more with that. I've got a 14-year-old daughter who's mad into football. Told you I'll talk about sport.
Oh yeah,
So we
you're good in
spend
both references.
a lot of time going to football matches, watching training sessions, watching football matches at home, or watching them live, be that hers or other teams. But it's fantastic. I'm more into football now than I was when I was a kid.
Mm.
I'm still a Liverpool fan, thankfully, but I appreciate it an awful lot more than I did when I was, her age, which is really interesting. It's quite fascinating. Okay, last question. Favorite place that you've traveled to for personal, and one place that you want to go to that you haven't been.
I mean, I would have said my favorite place would be the place I want to go to, but I've now had the really fulfilling experience of traveling to the Maldives actually. So that was yeah, pretty cool trip. I got to go there last year for a friend's birthday. And so I sort of like told him, I was like, why would you make me come here for your birthday? This is the sort of place I want to go for my honeymoon. Now you've like made my honeymoon destination, less, right? The list of places I could go to less. So the Maldives probably favorite place I've traveled to, and
Amazing.
one place I would like to go to is I've never been to the Caribbean, so really any island in the Caribbean, yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
very excited to go there when I get the opportunity.
Amazing. I was in Jamaica for 4 days. I
Uh,
didn't leave the resort. It was a company
uh,
thing. It was amazing. Um, Never been to Maldives. Very high up on the list, which my wife would agree with. My wife is Korean, so I've been to Korea a few times, and
yeah.
I would highly recommend checking out Korea. It's a
Oh,
it's an experience for
there
sure.
we go.
And obviously coming over to Ireland and doing a road trip from,
Absolutely.
Dublin and down to Cork as well.
There we go. No, looking
So
forward to that, I'm sure, because as I said, my co-founder
yeah.
is from Ireland. Actually, he's also a massive Liverpool fan. So you
Oh,
see,
thankfully.
you two seem to have a lot of similarities.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm conscious of time. I want to give you a little bit of a breather because I've imagined you have a meeting at 11 o'clock. So you'll have 5 minutes to step away and get ready for that one.
Yeah,
Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed speaking with you. If I'm in London in the next while, I might just drop a note and see if I can drop by and have a cup of coffee and say hello. Would love to meet in person.
please.
Catherine, obviously, if you're around, it would be great to meet as well. But thank you again. I'll send over the recording. Grace will go in and edit some of the bits, probably me talking about football because
Yeah.
we can't have it in every episode. People just get bored. And it's not, obviously conversations about you. But listen, I really enjoyed it. I love being able to have these
Yeah.
conversations because it's a bit more informal and
Yeah.
yeah, just getting to know what makes you tick, right?
Yeah.
To a certain
No, I
degree.
appreciate
So
it. No, I
really
really,
appreciate
really
it.
enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Colin. It was an excellent interview. So thank you so much.
Brilliant. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.